Sarehole Mill in Hall Green is Birmingham's only working watermill. Built in 1765, the mill provided inspiration for Tolkien and continues to enchant visitors to this day. We're following Claire James, a Year 3 class teacher, and Jane Turner, Science Advisor for the Science Learning Centre, as they visit the mill to plan a school trip. Perhaps not an obvious choice for a school visit to investigate materials, but looking closely, there are some wonderful opportunities to engage the children's interest in what they see around them.
This is the ground floor, Joan. I thought this is a good place to start with the children.
Gosh, this will catch their attention.
It will, definitely.
Yeah, impressive.
Walking around the mill, the science of forces and gears is clearly visible in the workings of the water wheel. But looking really closely reveals a whole variety of materials with different properties to focus the children's learning.
There are so many curricular opportunities here in art, history.
Yeah, I mean, there's masses here. You're going to have to really focus hard, because even as a half day they'll be here for.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's science. You're going to be really clear on that.
Science, and I think materials in particular. I think that's what this site lends itself.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're doing this term anyway. And I think it's so good to bring children to a museum that isn't a science museum, isn't an activity-based press-a-button museum. It's, look, there's science all around you. What is it? Focus on that.
Yeah.
I think we need to think about the science here, because it's really easy on a visit to think about, you know, health and safety and coaches and lunches and toilets and risk assessment.
The mill is the inspiration, and that's what we need to focus on, not just filling in a worksheet, going back to the classroom and not actually doing anything, or them having learnt anything.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about Science 1, investigation, the hardest thing very often is for us to get the children to ask the questions.
Absolutely.
So the science is in the children, it's in this building, and all we've got to do is bring it out.
Stimulate it,
So
definitely.
We've got to be careful here, and I think it's your conversation with Elvin probably which needs to focus on questions must come from the children. It's got to be a focus on materials, so they need to know what they're looking at, and then we want them asking questions, like we've been saying as you walk around. Oh, why is that stone different from this stone? And does the, you know, what would happen if this bit was made out of something else? So we want the questions to come from them, because then they'll be genuinely interested in finding out. And actually, the worksheet is a structure for that. Then.
But we don't want it to bog down. I've got to do this, I've got to do this, otherwise I haven't achieved anything.
And it's got to have a level of challenge, actually, or otherwise it is just filling in.
Claire's discussing her school trip with Elvin Morris, Education Officer for Birmingham Museums. Elvin's used to assisting with school groups of this kind and answering probing questions.
Because we've got so many different types of materials around here, and we've got leather being used for dry felts and hinges. We've got 4 different sorts of wood in the mill, soft woods and hardwoods, and of course we've got the iron and steel, that sort of thing being used, and stone, of course. Yeah.
And do you have different types of wood for the different things? For example, like the cogs, are they made of a particular type of wood? Or?
Well, it's very interesting that you mentioned that, because the cogs need to be flexible, and that's bringing in the properties of materials. So we use a wood that would bend a little bit, and fruit woods are very good at doing that. The water wheel needs to be a type of wood that's obviously water resistant. So you can't use something like pine for that, or it would only last a year. So nowadays, we've repaired the buckets on the water wheel, that's the wooden parts, with oak. But in the past, the best wood that you can use is elm. Of course, you can't get it today because of Dutch elm disease.
Don't forget, there's other materials here. We've got water, which I think it's really important that we talk about a liquid as opposed to the solid materials.
I think it would really, really benefit the children if you'd be able to come into the classroom as well and do some of the activities.
I'd like to do that. That would be fun. I've got some models that I can bring in with me.
Excellent.
Well, I've got the water wheel model that the children might like to have a look at. And I've also got a model millstone that they can have a go at as well.
Do some grinding in that.
Elvin will be a useful resource in the classroom with his specialist knowledge and working models, an effective way of bringing the outside environment back into the classroom. This collaboration could reap some good benefits, but does Jane see anything to watch out for?
I think it's really important when schools come out on a museum visit that they view it as a collaboration between the museum educator and you. Very often teachers come on a visit and they hand it over to the museum educator, and it has to be a collaboration so that everybody gets the most out of it.
Because you've got two expertises and they're coming together, and like you say, too often it's just left to the person on site and then
who's never met your children before and isn't going to know what they're going to do in the classroom afterwards. But what we're trying to do here is show a real collaborative project that's going to have some sustained impact.
Claire wants the small group of children who come on the visit to see how the mill works and to investigate why certain materials are used. Despite acknowledging the drawbacks of detailed worksheets, Claire's going to devise a material hunt to help the children focus on what they'll find around them. A successful recce and a great location, but just how will it all come together when the children arrive?
Right then, we're going to put our bags down, take our coats off, and we're going to try and find out as much as we possibly can about this mill.
Claire sets the children the challenge of exploring the materials around the mill using the Material Hunt worksheets to help them with a structured investigation. With the extra adult help she's got available from Jane and Elvin, she's also encouraged the children to ask lots of questions.
Why did they put the water wheel here?
Why did they build the water wheel here? That's a good question.
So the glass lets the light through, and the property is called see-through or transparent. It's a transparent material or a see-through material, and so it's really, really good for windows. Would it be good for the floor?
What are the sacks for?
What are the sacks for? Well, we put our wheat in the sacks and then we put them on a chain called a sack hoist. And then we can take the sacks of wheat right the way up to the top of the mill. Look, you see? There's the wheat. Now we need to get that wheat into that millstone there that's going round. So, what we do is take it up to the top of the mill and drop it down this thing. This is called a chute. And can you see it dropping into the middle of the stone there? That's called the eye of the stone, that big hole in the middle. And then it goes between those two stones, and the top one's going round and round and round, grinding it up, because that stone has a very rough surface. Now, when it's being ground up, it goes out towards the edges of the stone, and then it drops off, and you catch it in the bottom, and then it's flour.
The children take photographs of the material textures they find around the mill and write down the properties of each material onto speech bubbles.
Of course you found lots of things, haven't you? Which one have you found most of?
Wood.
Yeah, now why is it good to make them out of wood, do you think?
They're strong.
They're thick, they're strong, aren't they?
The children have been really absorbed by the workings of the mill itself and, of course, what it actually does.
You can see, here it comes. And now we've got our flour. And you all know what you can do with that.
Yeah.
You can make with it
Bread, yummy.
bread
And chapati.
and chapati.
Understanding where bread comes from is useful learning, but here, keeping young minds focused on the nature of the materials involved is Claire's key learning objective.
If you put it in a container, you would say it was pouring, isn't
Yeah, it's
it?
like it's coming down a bit like water now, isn't it?
Using the beautiful surroundings of this old watermill has helped to motivate the children to investigate materials. Collecting their own evidence for later use in the classroom has also been key to engaging their interest and furthering their own learning. But what do our teacher and science expert think? Time for Claire and Jane to catch up on how the visit has gone and to find out what ideas Claire might have for follow-up activities in the classroom.
There are things that I would definitely change. For example, the worksheets.
Yeah, there was an issue, a bit of a problem there between confusion of object and material, and we probably could have made that another column on the table. I think would have made that easier. So what is it? What's the material? What's it being used for here? And why is that material good in that instance? Because we wanted to draw out that some materials have more than one property and it's used in different settings.
And then it was difficult for them to do, so I think that was an issue. But overall, I think they were really enthused and they actually saw that the changes that the materials go
Yeah, they
through.
saw that, so we can bring that out in the classroom.
I think the whole water wheel experience for them, seeing that was like the real all-in-one.
Yeah, so that's something
them.
to do in the classroom, a bit of, if we can test that out and experiment with it in the classroom.
And then expand on the materials by doing a material trail, sort of like a display piece almost.
Yeah, because we've got those speech bubbles, but there's a confusion on some of those between a property and an object and where it comes from. So we need to sit with them and actually explore those.
That just leaves me with a lesson then to plan, and I think really following on from this material trail work using the speech bubbles, etc. We can do what materials can you find at the mill, and they'll be able to do some great display work with that. And I think having taken photos around the mill of all the different objects, we'll be able to do some great clay work, getting texture and everything.
And you want to do something with the water wheel.
And then the water wheel, well, Elvin's coming in and he'll be able to lead that activity. And then finally, sort of looking at best material for a millstone, looking at rock stones and their hardness.
Well, that's what the practitioners think. What about the children?
I enjoyed when the wheel spin with the water, and what I learned is when wheat get crushed, it turns into flour. I learned about because the water is strong and it pushes the wheel to go round. I learned about material that stone is colder than wood. When I touched the window, I thought it was plastic, but it was glass. We learned today that different materials can do different things.
Back at school, Claire will be introducing some activities based on what the children discovered in their small group visits to Sarehole Mill. The children will explore and investigate further the scientific concepts they identified on their trip. And to help bring the learning from the outside in, Mill Education Advisor Elvin will be working with the children with his model water wheel and mill, literally keeping the children's noses to the grindstone.